Alright, so Lori's coated the inside of this Dulcimer box with some felt stuff and furry cloth, really, and she's coated these things, and so I need to put them in the box and screw them in, and then we got to put the lid and a handle and some latches on it and stuff too to finish it up. Before we do all that, I'm going to take some, we got some teak oil here, and we're going to put that on here, and then I think once we get the teak oil on there, maybe sand it down once or twice, reapply the teak oil, we're going to put some polyurethane on that too, just to give it some extra protection, especially on this backside, which is going to be sitting down on the ground where you sit it down. So that's what we're got to do next. Alright, so got a little piece of cloth here, and I like to use a small piece of cloth. If you use a whole piece of cloth, like a whole wash rag, you're just going to end up getting a whole wash rag's worth of teak oil in your cloth, and that's no good. So I like to use a smaller piece of cloth, and then we're going to apply this. Now this is pine here, and I don't expect there to be a lot of difference between pine with the teak oil and pine without it, but we'll probably see some difference when we get to the oak part. And unfortunately, Lori already put teak oil on the black walnut for you, so you're not going to be able to see that change in real time. But I'll post a picture of when it came off the planer and after the teak oil, so you can kind of see it. I asked her not to do that, but she didn't hear me. Alright, so this is the back. This is just some plywood. But again, we'll put the teak oil on it. That way whatever grain is in there, bring out. This is going to end up with stickers on it, on the back side, I think, anyway. We won't put stickers on the part with the black walnut, but I'm sure we'll end up putting some stickers on this side. Cover up some of these staples and stuff anyway. Alright, so now this is the oak side. It's not going to suck up as much as this teak oil as the other sides did, but we'll get some on there and smear it around. Yeah, see that little bit? It's more than enough to cover all this oak, because it's got a much tighter grain. That plywood just sucked it up like it was a giant sponge. And we haven't decided if we're going to put material on this inside over here, so I'm not going to put any teak oil on that. No sense putting oil on there if we're not going to be able to see the wood anyway. Alright, now this is pine here too, and it's gonna suck up the oil pretty good, I would imagine. Alright, it didn't suck it up quite as fast as this plywood over here does. In fact, it's hard to get the plywood over here wet with the oil because it sucks it up so fast. Now, I've got some spots here where you can see that some glue is keeping the grain from sucking up the oil. But like I said, I'm going to sand this down a little bit, so I'll probably just hit that real good with some sandpaper, knock some of that glue off so that it looks a little bit more even. Alright, so we got first coat of oil on here. And I'm not really worried about the pine parts too bad, but I want to make sure that this oak piece gets lots of good oil on it before we finish this and put some polyurethane on it. Alright, we'll get those inserts in there next. Teak oil is a little sticky, so I'm going to get it off my hands. And then I'm going to take this cloth, run it over it real quick just to get any of the excess off so I don't keep getting my hands all sticky as I keep handling this box. Alright, that's much less sticky. Alright, so I know this is going to be the bottom of my box when I set it down. The reason for that is this is the oak piece, and I want the more durable piece of wood to be hitting the ground in case it gets set down on sidewalks or pavement or whatever. And I also know that I want these pieces to go in this way because I've got the dulcimer going with the fat end down here and the tuning pegs up here, and that's the way I cut these. So I don't have to try to remember which way those go in there. I already know which way they go. And then it's just a matter of lining up my holes, because remember I pre-drilled my holes here, and then I'll line those up with the holes in the bottom of this. Alright, I have holes where those lined up, and then putting the screw in there. Alright, so we got our screws here. I'm going to put these through the bottom. I need to get my drill driver out here. Doing this by hand is going to be for the birds. Alright, so we got a drill driver out here. And you can see well, you probably can't see, but our screw's sticking through well there. And I got to line it up with this hole. Alright, got that one started. Got to get the rest of these going. Alright, that side's done. Got to do the other side now. Alright, got those attached. Now I need to go get the dulcimer fitted in here and double sure and make sure that it fits before I go any further. So the moment of truth. Oh, it is snug. But it does fit in there. It's too snug though. So I'm going to see if I can loosen my screws up a little bit, pull it to one side and retighten them and see if that gives me just enough clearance. This fabric may have been a little bit thicker than what I was thinking it was going to be. Alright, I'm not feeling as though that's working, but we'll try it anyway. Yep, it's still too tight. I said it goes down in there, but that's not the way we want it to work. All right, well we'll work on fixing that later. All right, so I think the next thing I want to do is I want to put the hinge on, and I had ordered a 36-inch hinge, and I was going to have to cut about 1/8 of an inch off either end, and I found this 30-inch hinge that I don't have to cut. I think I'm going to use that. Alright, so my hinge is going to go on like that. I could measure this and center it, but it looks like about 4 fingers on either side is centered. And that's going to be close enough for me. I'll open this up and start attaching screws. Now if I was smart, I'd make little pilot holes here for my screws to go into, but If you've ever watched my channel before, you know that that's not the case, that I'm smart. Alright, so again, this is my walnut side, so it's going into hardwood. It should hold up pretty good. Alright, so we got our piano hinge up here and working. So now we just got to attach the lid to it. Alright, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to lay the lid flat here. And then that way I can have easy access to these holes to attach the lid to it. Alright, so we've got the black walnut lid here. And you can see a crack here. You can see a crack here on this end. This end doesn't look quite so bad. You gotta remember, this was a repurposed piece. So I think I'm gonna use this as the top. And I've got some tooling marks right here, look like from the planer, where I thought I'd planed down all the old board, but maybe not right there. But I can hit that with some sandpaper later. And yeah, I think I'm going to put the crack here on the inside. So I want this to be the top, so I'm going to flip this way and then attach this like that. So to make this easier, I'm going to find something to put up underneath here so that this sets flat and even. Make it easier to attach the hinge. Probably a couple old paperback books will work just great. Alright, these are about the thickness of my board, so some Philip Jose Farmer to the rescue. Yeah, I think that'll work nicely. Alright, so now I got to make sure that my board is even this way and it's lined up on the hinge the way I want it. Now, screwing these screws into the oak wasn't too bad, and the pine would have been real easy. But I'm gonna drill some pilot holes, I think, into this black walnut, because otherwise it's going to be heck trying to get these little bitty screws in there without a pilot hole. Alright, so I want to get a drill bit that so I want to get a drill bit here that it's not too big. I think we'll go with that one. Alright, fortunately that drill bit goes in there pretty good ways, and as a matter of fact, it does not go all the way, it's not long enough to go all the way through this board, which is good because I don't want to drill all the way through the board. So I think what I'm going to do is I think I want to mark this with a pencil, and then I'll drill it, because otherwise I'm drilling out here and I won't be able to see real good. But I'll mark it with a pencil, and then I can turn it around and drill my pilot holes and then turn it back around to attach it to the hinge. So pencil first. And so again, I want to make sure my lid is even left to right. And then Make sure my hinge is where I want it. I think that's good. And I'm going to draw a circle around where the holes are instead of trying to put a dot. The dot may or may not be centered. But if I draw a circle, then when I pull it out and I've got a better view of my marking, I can make sure that it goes in the center of the circle a little bit better. So we're going to do it that way. Alright. Pull that out. Flip it around so I can see it better. And now we'll drill our little pilot holes here. Alright, got the pilot holes drilled. Flip this back around and attach the screws. Alright, I'm going to just get these started with the hand screwdriver. Just kind of allow me to get them all lined up, make sure they're where I want them. Alright, now that I kind of got all those started, I'm going to once again double check and make sure that my hinge or my board is kind of lined up with my hinge this way, the way I want it before I start screwing these down. I think I'm going to start on the ends and then go from there. Alright, so my screwdriver, my drill driver doesn't quite fit in there very easily, so I'm just going to loosen up my chuck, let my bit drop in there a little bit further. That way I don't hit up here at the top. Alright. Of course, the problem I got with dropping my bit in there further is now the fat part is hitting up against here. It's making that a little bit difficult, so I might try to bring it out just a little bit, see if there's an optimal length where I don't hit up here, but I got more room down here. And that was a little bit better. Alright, so now to see if this thing will actually work. Alright. I'm going to have to put a stop on that to keep this from flopping backwards. Looks like it works. It doesn't quite line up even here. There's a gap here versus there. And that's probably the construction of my box here. But we're going to put some latches on here. And hopefully that should, maybe if after it's latched for a little while, the box and the top will conform to each other a little bit better. If not, oh well. Alright, so I've got these latches that I bought, and a lot of these have a much bigger top. This is a rounded top, which was never going to work on my lid. I would have had to build a box top like an inch thick just to accommodate the clasp. But I found these online, and they're the same thickness as my board here, so I can put these on here like this and and they'll latch. Alright, so they'll look like that once they're attached. So, time to go find some screws that'll fit these. Alright, so these even came with some screws. So I'll need 4 of those for each hinge. So I'll need 8. And again, I could get out a tape measure, measure this, and make sure that they're equidistant from the ends, but I'm just going to do the 4 fingers method again and kind of put these on here. Each one about 4 fingers in. And it should be close enough to where you'll never know that I didn't measure with a tape measure. And since this is going into black walnut, I think I'm gonna drill pilot holes again. So I'm gonna mark these. And then once I get these marked, I'll actually clasp this down and then mark these holes here, so that way I know they lined up perfectly. Actually, I'm going to stop because I realize that my drill bit's probably not the right size for these. These screws are a little smaller, so I need to yep, that drill bit there will work better for this size screw. Almost got myself into trouble there, which wouldn't be the first time. Alright. Now, never drill towards your hand. Alright, so we got those drilled. And since these are small screws, not very long, I'm just going to put these in by hand, I think. Quicker to do that than it is to change out take the drill bit out of the drill and put the drill driver bit in there. And these are kind of small screws. I don't think my drill driver bit would fit these screws very well anyway, so we'll just do her the old-fashioned way. Alright, so this is getting close to being all the way, these screws are getting close to being all the way in. I'm going to have to hold this up because there's a little lip on the top and I want it to fit over the wood. Man, these screws are not wanting to go in very well. See, the screws are tight. This thing here is still loose. I may back these out and see if I can't run my drill bit in there a little bit deeper and make sure that the hole is deep enough to accommodate this screw. Because it's a tiny screw and I'm stripping out the driver slots, trying to get enough torque on there to get that screw to go into this black walnut, and it's not wanting to go. Alright, so our depth, I'm just going to run this drill bit all the way in, make sure I got plenty of depth for these screws. Alright, we'll try this again, see if it works any better. Alright, they're still feeling pretty tight, and the thing's loose. A different thing, better grip with a different screwdriver bit. Alright, they're still loose, and those screws are tight. Alright, this is not going to work. I'm going to back these out, start with fresh screws, and see if that'll work a little bit better, because these are about stripped. I may have to try a slightly larger drill bit. Get that screw in there far enough. I'm going to check my drill bits and see if I could get away with using one that's a little bit bigger. Alright, this one's going to be close. I'm going to try it on one of the holes, just to make sure it's not too big. We'll see if it works any better. Now, if this ends up being a little bit too big, that's okay. I can throw a toothpick or something in that hole and make the hole smaller again. But it seems like this is gripping pretty good. It's hard getting the screw in there. So I think that drill bit is not going to be too big. And I'm going to be able to tighten that up. So use this on this hole over here. And we should be good to go. Now, screwing into this pine down here, I may actually go back to the smaller bit, because it should be a lot easier to screw into that than this black walnut. Almost seated in there, and that's secure, so just barely makes it. Alright, that one's tight. So now we got this latch here, and when it's latched, that's where it should be. So we're going to mark these holes. Drill me a pilot hole. Now, since the drill bit length didn't matter up here because it's just going into the wood, but here I'm going sideways, I'm going to adjust my drill bit to where it's not any longer than my screw depth. So that looks good about there. And you can see it's less than the width of the wood, so it's not going to go all the way through. And I actually forgot a screw hole because there's one down here, but I'll mark and drill that once I've got these two started. Alright, just to make sure that lines up good, I'm going to clamp that down to do my final tightening here. Alright, I'll drill this bottom hole here. And because I didn't miss that, or I didn't notice this bottom hole earlier in the video when I told you I was going to need 4 screws for each hinge, that was a lie. I need 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Now do the other one again. And actually, if you'll notice, I can't mark that bottom screw hole anyway, at least not with that, at least not with it latched. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to drill these first, attach it, and then come back and just drill that third hole after everything's lined up anyway. Alright, latched on there. Last thing you gotta do is attach a handle. Alright, so we got a little problem with our handle. Our handle comes with basically a holder that uses a bolt instead of a screw, and has this plate here. So it's supposed to put drill holes, and then you would put your screw through the inside of the case this way, and then screw that into your holes. But that's not going to work with this, because my wood for the case is way too thick. So I'm going to have to find longer screws to use this handle. So off to the hardware bin to see if I can find something that is, my wood is the same width as this, so I need a screw that is long enough to go all the way through that, and then some to go into my receiver for the bolts over here. So I need to find 4 of those guys. Alright, so I just got done saying I needed to find longer bolts. I've decided I'm not going to do that, because this is a fine thread or maybe a metric thread, and I'm having a terrible time finding the longer bolts. So what I've decided I'm going to do, since I don't have longer bolts, I'm just going to make the wood thinner. So I'm going to mark this where my holes for the bolts are going to go through from this side, and then on the inside I'm going to take and drill out some of the wood and then use washers to catch the bolt on the back, instead of using this piece, because this piece I'd have to notch out a square piece for this to fit into. But if I just drill out with a round drill bit some of the wood, then I can just use this on the back, and that should work fine. The only thing that means is I'm going to need to take the baffle in there out so that I can get the drill in there and drill some holes. But hopefully that should work. Might have to take both of them out to get the drill down in there. But it's either in manufacturing longer bolts. Alright, so to figure out where to put the handle, I put the dulcimer in there. I'm going to go ahead and latch it so I don't dump it out. And so I've got the dulcimer in there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lift this up just by 2 fingers and see if I can figure out where the center is. Actually, that's pretty close right there. See, if I lift it up here, it's not going to lift evenly. So I want to find pretty close to where the center weight is. So right about there is where I want my middle to be. And I'm going to mark that on the, just put a little bitty mark there on the dark wood so you don't see it. And I will center this here. And if feels like left to right or up to down, I want to have it a little high here also. So I don't want it exactly center because then it wants to tip towards me. Yeah, I want to have it kind of high. So now that I kind of figured out where my center of gravity is, I'll mark that, and we'll drill the holes in through the top, and then we'll also drill the holes into the bottom like I just said. Alright, so we're going to mark these. Alright, so if I look on the back of this, I can see the one hole is going to be right up against the square part. And then I can also use this as a template because if I look at that, both of my holes should be to the outside of these ovals. So I can use that to figure out where my holes need to be on the outside. Alright, so what I'm going to do, I've got this line here marked, and I'm going to set this here to where it's right up against that edge, just like it is on my handle. I'm just going to mark the round part here at this end, and then round part here at this end. And so now I know that I need to drill here and here for my holes to line up with my handles. And for this operation, I've picked a drill bit that is slightly bigger than my bolt because I don't want the bolt to catch on the wood. I want it to go through easily. It's going to be held on basically by this part here, which is essentially a nut. And before I drill all the way through there, I think I'm going to take the Dulcimer out of the case. Alright, so I've drilled that out, and I've taken my baffles out, and I need to be able to drill on the back side here and take some material out. My drill's not going to fit in there very well, but I can angle it in well enough to get some material removed, which is really all I need to do. But I'm going to need a drill bit that is bigger than this washer that I'm going to use. Right? And right now it's not. So I'm going to have to go off to the tool shed, find me a bigger drill bit that is bigger than this washer. Alright, so I found me a mortising bit, and it's just bigger than the washer that I need. And I've got my screw that fits my guitar case handle, and you can see with the screw in there, I need to get rid of about a 1/4 inch of material, or about halfway through, plus a little bit for it to stick out and be able to grab the threads of the guitar handle. So we're going to drill out the back of this, and then we'll put the screw through there and see if it sticks out far enough to grab the threads of the guitar case handle, and keep doing that until we get it right. Alright, so for sure I'll never buy a guitar case handle that's like this ever again. I'll buy the ones that the screws go in from the outside, because this is just not working out very well. So as you can see, as I'm drilling, because I can't get my drill all the way in the case and my drill bit's too long, this is real deep on this side, this is real shallow. So by the time I get this end deep enough, this end, the top, might be all the way through the wood. But I'll keep trying this and see what I end up with. But again, not working out real great. Alright, it is just starting to stick out, but I'm already pretty far down through that wood. I'm going to check the depth and see if I can stand to go any further. With the deepest part, I'm about there. So I've got a little bit more I can go through, but man, I really don't want to go too much further than that. Alright, I think that should catch the guitar case handle there. Check all 4 of them to make sure that they're all they're all drilled the same depth and will stick out. I'm just really not keen on drilling these out any further. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave the washers off. The other option would be to find me some thinner washers. These are kind of thick. Alright, so I had a little bit thicker washer. I went and got some thinner ones, which is giving me an extra thread or so on the back of these. So I should have enough to be able to grab this without the walls of the wood being too thin. Alright, we've got all 4 of these grabbing. Alright, that is secured. So now all we got to do is vacuum out the inside of this and reattach our baffles. Alright, so I put the baffles back in here. Time to put our Dulcimer back in. We'll have to take our protective tape off here. Like I said, it's kind of a tight fit, but it's not too bad. And we'll need to take a piece of foam and wrap it in some felt, make a tube of foam that kind of goes here in the middle so that when you close it, it can't fall. I don't think it's going to fall out of here anyway, not as tight as it fits right now, but just to make sure that when you close the lid, it's keeping it in there up and down. But for right now, I think it's going to work. And then I bought one of these retaining lever thingies. But there's not enough room in here for this to work. So note to self, next time I do one of these, I'll make this long enough to where I can put one of these lid latches on here. But because of that, we're just going to take a piece of leather strapping or something, strap on here, strap on there. Same thing on this end, so that way when you open it, it goes just a little bit past center to where the weight holds it open. The weight of the door of the lid holds it open, but it doesn't fall down and crash on the table. So you close it up. We got our latches. We got our handle. We're ready to go to Dulcimer class. Alright, so we got some screws here. I'm going to take and put a piece of leather here, like that, and then we'll lift the lid up, measure it, cut it, and attach another piece of leather there. And that should hold it in place or keep it from flopping. So I'm going to go ahead and drill a hole here through that leather and through the end of the wood, pilot hole for myself. Alright, give me a screwdriver. Alright, there's that side. Got a pair of scissors for me. Take off of there. Alright, lift the lid up about like that. And we'll cut that there. We'll do it about like that because the leather might stretch a little bit. Okay, screwdriver and the screw. Now these screws are, again, they're short enough to where they're not going to go through the lid, and the leather is going to keep it off of that anyway. Do we get to work this through the leather into the hole? And so there, voila, when we open it up, let it go, it's not going to bang on the table. Ta-da! And then we'll just have to train the leather to where when you close it, it disappears back inside the box. Alright, now we come to the part where we got the bottom of this case, which has staples and screw holes and stuff in it. It's not very pretty. So that's the side we're going to put our stickers on. So now we got to decide. Lori's got to decide what stickers she wants on the case.